Pasta, such a versatile, easy-to-make, comforting meal that everybody loves. Unfortunately, many pasta meals will spike your blood sugar too high and keep it there for a long time. But what if I told you that it doesn't need to be that way?
Can you have pasta on a low-carb keto diet? Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Westman. Welcome to my channel where I review and debunk nutritional misinformation online. In this video, we're going to watch someone check his blood sugars after eating different kinds of pasta. And we'll get some information about blood sugars, and I'll talk about how you can measure your own blood sugar after pasta or any food for that matter. Be sure to watch to the end of the video where you get my final thoughts. Before we dive into today's video, I want to personally invite you to join my free diabetes lab workshop. In this essential workshop, I'll walk you through how to understand your lab results so you can take control of your health and reverse type 2 diabetes and prediabetes for good. See the link in the description to sign up.
As someone living with diabetes for 35 years, I embarked on a journey to find the best blood sugar-friendly pasta option. I studied nutritional values on every package I could find, and I tested hundreds of pasta meals, both at home and in restaurants. This research was a game changer for me. That's why in this video I want to rate 10 different types of pasta based on their taste and how they impact my blood sugar to help you decide which one is best for you. And as a bonus at the end of this video, I will teach you 7 practical hacks that will help you keep your blood sugar in check no matter what kind of pasta you eat.
So always consider the source. I reviewed Type 1 Talks video from him a while back. I liked the information. I've learned a lot from people with Type 1 diabetes about how blood sugar can respond to foods because they're checking their blood sugars very frequently. And only recently you could actually now have the blood sugar checked every 5 minutes or so with one of these glucometers, a glucose meter that actually just sits in a little disc-like thing on your arm. It doesn't hurt to put it in. You go like this and it will tell your blood sugar every 5 minutes. Now, they've been used in diabetes for a long time. You can actually get these glucometers now without a prescription online. And now they're from $50 to $100 per month. So you can actually get this information. But let's say you don't want to go to these lengths. So you can watch other people eat food and see how their blood sugar responds. Of course, this person with diabetes might not have the same response you do. So make sure you wait till the end of the video when we wrap it up.
Keep in mind, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm just someone who understands your diabetes struggle and wants to help. Let's start with the most popular pasta in the world. I bet you have a pack of Barilla spaghetti in your cupboard. It's a classic Italian pasta made from semolina, which is a durum wheat flour and water. Now, semolina is not the worst type of flour there is. It's definitely better than the all-purpose white flour that white bread is made from. But a small portion of this Barilla pasta has roughly 40 carbs, only 7 grams of protein and less than 2 grams of fiber, making it a high-starch food that quickly breaks down into glucose. And for those of us managing diabetes, that's a challenge.
So starches get digested to sugar. So that's why on a low-carb diet, if you're starting out, you are instructed to not have sugar. Kind of obvious, that'll raise the blood sugar, but also starches, because starches get digested to sugar. So I'm predicting that this pasta will raise his blood sugar.
To test it out, I tried a small portion of Barilla spaghetti with a simple tomato sauce. Although I took my insulin with it, my blood sugar spiked to about 200 milligrams per deciliter. So while this pasta gets a 9 out of 10 for its delicious taste, I can only give it 2 out of 10 for its negative blood sugar impact. A total of 11 points for this classic Barilla spaghetti.
So his categorization, his numbering is the 10 for taste is a good number, is high a number. But the second one, a low number, means that it raises the blood sugar a lot. So 10 being the best for the blood sugar response. A little backwards from what I would do it, but so this was a high blood sugar response with the pasta.
Now I want to make one thing clear. It doesn't matter if you get spaghetti, linguine, penne or fusilli. Different shapes of pasta don't affect blood sugar differently. What matters are the ingredients and nutritional values. So let's look at this egg linguine next. This one is a bit different from the classic pasta because the manufacturer adds 3 eggs in the dough per each package, which gives the pasta slightly richer flavor. A small portion of this egg linguine has approximately 38 carbs, 8 grams of protein and 2 grams of fiber. So a bit less carbs and a bit more protein than the classic pasta.
So if you went through our teaching that we do and lots of other low-carb programs, you'd be instructed to watch the total grams of carbs. And here this is still pretty high, 38 grams. Probably going to raise his blood sugar.
The added egg might sound promising, but when I tried a small serving, my blood sugar rose to nearly 190. Not as high as the classic spaghetti, but a lot higher than what I would want to see. And that's why I would rate the egg pasta 9 out of 10 for taste and 3 out of 10 for its major blood sugar impact. A total of 12 points. Next up is one of my favorites. This is a local organic whole grain penne from my local store. The only difference between these and the traditional pasta is that they are made from whole grain semolina. And as you will see, this really matters. When we look at the nutritional values, the small portion of this whole grain pasta has roughly 36 carbs, 7 grams of protein and almost 4 grams of fiber. So less total carbs and double the fiber of traditional pasta. And that's really important because fiber is the kind of carbohydrate that our body cannot digest. Plus, it slows down digestion, which results in a more gradual and more gentle spike in blood sugar levels. When I tried a small portion with a simple tomato sauce, my blood sugar rose to around 160. That's not perfect, but it's actually pretty good.
Well, so now we're getting into the, should you subtract the fiber from the total carbs? That's called net carbs. And if you do subtract the fiber here, you can see there is a little smaller increase in the blood glucose. So if you use net carbs, it might mean a little bit. But I'm trying to get to a place where there's no change in the blood sugar after eating the pasta or the food, the bread, the rice, the fruit, all of that. So even though it's a little better to have the fiber in the different brands, and even adding the egg didn't seem to matter, still focus on the total carbs. Don't subtract out the fiber grams, because net carbs really just means more carbs.
The whole grain version has a slightly nutty flavor and chewier texture than traditional pasta, but I personally don't mind this. That's why I'm giving it 8 out of 10 for taste and a 6 out of 10 for its blood sugar impact. A total of 14 points. So we have a new leader, something that tastes pretty good and doesn't spike blood sugar too much. Now here I have another example of whole grain pasta. This one is made from spelt flour, which is an Asian cousin of a modern wheat flour. The whole grain spelt pasta has slightly better nutritional values and blood sugar friendly profile than the whole grain pasta made from semolina flour I just talked about. But it is even more chewy and nuttier. Another advantage of spelt pasta is that it's easier to digest because the gluten in spelt is highly soluble. But although it is a very blood sugar friendly pasta and gets a 7 out of 10 for its blood sugar impact, I'm not a big fan of how it tastes. So I'm giving it only 5 out of 10 for its taste. A total of 12 points.
It still raised the blood sugar a lot, but he's giving it a higher mark when I would really want the blood sugar to be, again, not going up at all.
But next, I want to talk about something very special. I saved this one for later in the video because it's unlike any other pasta on the list and it has practically zero blood sugar impact. Let me introduce you to Shirataki, aka konjac noodles. Although these aren't technically pasta, they deserve a spot on the list, especially if you're looking for a super low carb option. These translucent jelly-like noodles are made from the konjac plant, which is mostly water and soluble fiber. A small portion of these noodles is only 2 carbs, but nearly all of it is fiber, with hardly any protein or fat. So they're about as close to 0 calories and 0 carbs as you can get. When I tried Shirataki, I was impressed. Although I ate a big bowl, my blood sugar didn't spike at all.
That's the kind of response that you want. And I've known about Shirataki noodles and include them in my teaching if someone is craving pasta. So I don't normally tell people about all the substitutions that we have at the beginning, because most people end up not wanting pasta or even not wanting rice or bread or fruit. And even though I have substitutions for all of those different things, here Shirataki noodles is the kind of the generic term made out of konjac root, but it's also under other brands like Miracle noodles, skinny pasta, these are brands that have been out there a while, and I've watched several of them kind of improve over time the way you prepare them, and then you can actually get some already flavored. So you just put them in the microwave, and almost like ramen noodles, but they're a little more expensive than ramen noodles. But here, yeah, Shirataki noodles will have a flatline glucose response. If you remember, the total grams of carbs was 2. And so when you look at total grams, going from 2 to 19 raised the blood glucose response up to 120. Going from 19 to 35, the blood sugars went up to 160, 180. It's a function of the total grams of carbohydrates.
Now, I'm sure some of you might be thinking, Tom, stop this chickpeas and shirataki nonsense. I want the real thing, the real pasta. Alright, let me tell you about the most delicious pasta I ever tried. These artisanal spaghetti are made in small batches with traditional slower methods. That's why they retain more nutrients, have a richer taste and a rougher texture that holds sauces better. And they are delicious. It's a completely different level of pasta. A little downside at this artisanal pasta is usually only available in specialized stores, and they cost a lot. They're about 3 times as expensive as Barilla spaghetti. For my test, I used the Mancini Classic line, although they also have a wholemeal version, which would probably be better for my blood sugar, but I wanted the real thing. But a small portion of this Mancini spaghetti contains a whopping 42 carbs, which is the most of all the pasta we talked about so far. Although I took my insulin, my blood sugar spiked to over 220 after I ate a small portion with a simple tomato sauce.
So he said that again, although I took my insulin, his blood sugar went up. So people with type 1 diabetes are instructed to take insulin before a meal so that the blood sugar will come back down. And it happens automatically in someone who doesn't have type 1 diabetes. If you have type 2 diabetes, you probably have insulin resistance, which means the response to the insulin that you have inside or even injected will be less, so you have a blood sugar rise like this. But the amount of blood glucose response is how you determine how much insulin to give, which is a function of the total grams of carbohydrate in that meal. So people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes are instructed to take more insulin based on how much carb is in their meal. And that's why it makes sense if you have type 1 diabetes to cut the carbs down so that you need less insulin to control it. Likewise, with type 2 diabetes, keep the carbs down, you eliminate the food and drink contribution to the elevation in blood sugar and insulin. So even though he wanted the flavor and taste of that one, it just raised the blood sugar way too high.
This was the highest blood sugar of all the pastas I tried in the test. But I'm telling you, it was completely worth it because this spaghetti tastes really good. So I'm giving it 10 out of 10 for taste, but only 1 out of 10 for its negative blood sugar impact. A total of 11 points. Now I want to make one thing clear. It is very possible to eat these high-carb pastas, like artisanal pastas, without such a crazy blood sugar spike. But you need to do it right, so let me explain. The obvious problem with the traditional pasta is that it is a high-starch carby food, which causes our blood sugar to spike rapidly and stay elevated for longer periods of time. But here are a few ways to get around it. Number 1. It all starts with preparation. The best way to cook pasta is al dente, which literally means to the tooth. Firm and chewy al dente pasta has a lower glycemic index, and from my experience, it spikes my blood sugar a bit slower and a bit less, compared to an overcooked mushy pasta. Number 2. Another thing you can do to lower the glycemic index is to rinse cooked pasta with cold water and cool it down. When I do that, I'm basically transforming some of that starch into resistant starch, which has similar characteristics to fiber, and it doesn't spike my blood sugar that much. Although I'm not a big fan of cold pasta salads, I do realize that it's a much more blood sugar friendly meal compared to a hot pasta dish. Here is another practical tip for you. Number 3. See, in Italy, pasta is traditionally eaten as a first course, but a traditional portion in an Italian restaurant is quite small, just 2 ounces of dry or about 4 ounces of cooked pasta. Unfortunately, outside Italy, it's quite common to get a huge bowl of pasta which is 2 or even 3 times bigger than the traditional portion. What I'm trying to say is you don't need to avoid pasta completely if you have diabetes, but try to keep an eye on the portion sizes because it's really important. It makes a difference.
The portion size, of course, will determine the number of grams of carbohydrate. So always look on the label to see how much is in a serving and what is the serving size when you're looking at these. You know, he's now kind of giving all of the tips on how to make the pasta response lower. My understanding of the keto metabolism is that that's not going to be good enough if you're eating those pastas that have the high rise. So if you're going to have pasta, choose the Shirataki noodles. But he didn't mention the other ways you can have pasta-like things, like zucchini noodles or spaghetti squash. You can even get zucchini now already zoodled up in the frozen section of many grocery stores, although you can get your own little machine to make pasta or noodles out of the vegetables that you have as well. Well, I'm going to end it on this one, but I think the main point is you can have pasta on a low-carb diet. And then his last point of you can have regular pasta if you don't have much of it. So if you're able to moderate the amount when you're out and about, have just a taste of even things like cake, candy, pies, ice cream, pasta, fruit, won't raise the blood sugar much. It's the amount that matters of it, which leads me to there's really no forbidden food on a keto low-carb diet at a keto level. It's just if it has carbohydrate in it, you can't have much of it. So it's very difficult to moderate that at first. But as time goes on, most people are able to go back to eating some of those old carbohydrate-laden foods with just having a much smaller portion size than before, or what's given naturally, automatically at a restaurant or even in a package. Well, I hope that's helpful. If you like, please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Look for new videos twice a week now. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com.